A mysterious man informs a group of strange beings that it is the time to strike. In his dimension, Zenjutsu wakes Ichigo Kurosaki up and asks him if he can hear anything. But the latter thinks it is okay that he cannot. In the Sireti, the captains and lieutenants of the 13 court guard squads are confused as to why their Zanpakuto are not working right, making them feel detached. At night, a group of Ryoka attempt to enter Shigekuni Yamamoto Genrusei's quarters. Yamamoto and his lieutenant Chojiro Sasakibe confront the intruders, but what they see leaves them in shock. Later, Yamamoto calls all captains and lieutenants to Sokyoku Hill. There they are met by the mysterious man, who calls himself Muramasa. Sergeant Komamura tries to attack him with his Zanpakuto, Tenkan. But it appears in a human form and turns on him, ending the battle by knocking him unconscious with one swing of the blade. The other Soul Reapers attempt to release their Zanpakuto to attack, but are somehow unable to do so. The Zanpakuto assume human-like forms and join Muramasa, who states that the Soul Reapers Zanpakuto have renounced them and have declared war. Ichigo finds Rukia Kuchiki injured in the world of the living, whilst a strange woman, who uses Rukia's abilities, is attacking her. It is revealed that this woman is in fact Rukia's Zanpakuto, Sword no Shirayuki. Ichigo successfully forces the renegade Zanpakuto into submission, and Sword no Shirayuki retreats back to the Soul Society. Ichigo brings Rukia to Kisuku Urahara's shop, where she reveals the Soul Reapers Zanpakuto have attacked their masters and that her brother Byakuya Kuchiki was seemingly defeated by his own Zanpakuto, Senbon Zakura. Yodishi Shoin returns from investigating a Soul Society and reveals that everyone who met with Muramasa has survived. The remaining Soul Reapers of the 13 court guard squads have regrouped to the 4th Division headquarters while they try to re-establish their defenses and learn more about the Zanpakuto rebellion. Urahara observes that only the Zanpakuto in the Soul Society are affected and that those in the real world are unaffected, and decides to try to capture one of the materialized Zanpakuto in an attempt to learn more about their new enemy. In the middle of the night, Rukia leaves for the Soul Society, apparently in search of Byakuya. Ichigo and Yodishi leave in an attempt to go after Rukia and to save the Soul Society. Rukia rushes back to the 6th Division headquarters and reunites with Renji Abarai. However, Byakuya's status remains unknown after the night of the rebellion. Ichigo and Yodishi arrive in the Soul Society and split up to search for clues. Rukia returns to Byakuya's compound, only to find Sword no Shirayuki there. Rukia tries to reason with her Zanpakuto, but Sword no Shirayuki demands her freedom. After a fierce battle, Rukia loses to Sword no Shirayuki, but Ichigo arrives to rescue her from being frozen to death. However, due to his reluctance to harm Rukia's Zanpakuto, he too is defeated by Sword no Shirayuki. Rukia attempts to get Sword no Shirayuki back to her by telling the Zanpakuto how important she is to her. Using her Kido powers, she constrains herself with Sword no Shirayuki as an attempt to convince Sword no Shirayuki that one could not live without the other. However, the resulting explosion injures Rukia severely. Sword no Shirayuki has a change of heart and attempts to reach out to her mistress, but Muramasa arrives and holds her back. Muramasa introduces himself to Ichigo and states that he is a Zanpakuto. Muramasa sends Sword no Shirayuki away, and Ichigo asks why he wanted the Zanpakuto to gain independence over the Soul Reapers. Although he does not give the reason, Muramasa replies that Zanpakuto can separate themselves away regardless of being the soul of a Soul Reaper, and he is a good example of one. Ichigo cannot accept this view and attacks him. Muramasa uses illusions to overwhelm Ichigo and pins him to the ground, where he proceeds to drag Zenjutsu out of him. Once Zenjutsu manifests, he immediately attacks Ichigo. Meanwhile, Mayuri Kurotsuchi Begi is experimenting on himself in order to research the manifestation of the Zanpakuto. After Ichigo is seemingly defeated by Zenjutsu, Ichigo transforms into his inner hollow form and strikes back, putting Zenjutsu on the defensive. Muramasa tries a sneak attack but the inner hollow immediately regenerates and attacks him. Before his inner hollow can do anything else, Ichigo manages to regain control of his body, falling unconscious at Muramasa's feet. Rukia is found by the 4th Division and sent to recover from her injuries. While Shuhei Hisagi patrols the Sireti, he is attacked by his sadistic Zanpakuto, Kazeshini. Renji searches the ruins for any clues of Byakuya, who is still missing. He instead encounters Zabimaru in the form of a monkey woman named Saru and a snake boy named Heibi. Both entities of Zabimaru have no intention of returning to their original owner and attack Renji. According to Zabimaru, all Zanpakuto have heard a voice telling them to follow their instincts to attack their masters. Ichigo wakes up in Zenjutsu's dimension, but the old man is missing. He sees Muramasa and attacks him, but the man immediately incapacitates him and summons his inner hollow. Muramasa has begun to take an interest in the inner hollow and uses his powers to freeze it in place. Thinking that it has been subdued, Muramasa approaches it, but the inner hollow merely tricks him with its act and lashes out straight at him. Jushiro Okitake and Shinsui Kyoraku discuss the possibility that defeating the Zanpakuto spirits will destroy the Zanpakuto themselves. Renji continues fighting with Zabimaru, who taunts him for his weakness. Hisagi fights with Kazeshini, and, disgusted by his desire to take life, plans on killing him even if he loses his Zanpakuto. Ichigo's inner hollow fig. HTS with Muramasa inside his mind until Muramasa uses his powers to restrain him, which then allows Ichigo sees through Muramasa's powers and saves his inner hollow. Ichigo then steps up to fight STA. Think that the inner hollow is a part of him as well. Ichigo manages to force Muramasa outside of his mind and continues the fight with him there. When Zabimaru threatens to kill Rukia, Renji remembers Ichigo's reason for fighting and then his own, which in turn enables him to regain his resolve, managing to activate Zabimaru's Shikai. Kazeshini wounds Hisagi in a surprise attack, but Izuru intervenes to help him, using Kido to bind Kazeshini long enough for the two of them to escape. Renji's fight with Zabimaru continues, and Zabimaru takes the advantage when they are able to activate Bankai while Renji, no longer able to control them, cannot. Renji considers his own weaknesses, and tricks Zabimaru into taking his sword, then breaks it with a Kido spell and then he defeats Zabimaru by firing the broken shards at them. Ichigo fights Zenjutsu, struggling when Zenjutsu activates Bankai. He uses Getsuga Tensho, working together with his inner hollow to defeat Zenjutsu, and forces Muramasa to retreat. Zenjutsu reveals that Muramasa is using a technique to awaken the instincts of the Zanpakuto, and by doing so, he can control them. Ichigo reports his findings of Muramasa's abilities to Okitake, Kyoraku and Ritsu Anohana. In order to find out about Muramasa's effects on Zanpakuto, Ichigo and Ikaku Madaram patrol the Sireti to seek out the entities. Meanwhile, someone breaks into a compound and knocks out the Soul Reapers guarding the area. Marechio Omaida stumbles on the unconscious guards and investigate, only to encounter his Zanpakuto spirit, Gejetsuberi, and Ikaku's Zanpakuto spirit, Hazukimaru. Omaida and Gejetsuberi are just about to fight when Ichigo and Ikaku interrupt. Omaida is knocked out of the fight, leaving Ichigo to battle Gejetsuberi, while Ikaku fights Hazukimaru. Ichigo defeats Gejetsuberi but Ikaku is wounded by Hazukimaru's Bankai. Just as he attempts to continue the battle, Okitake, Kyoraku and Suifang arrive to surround Hazukimaru, but he uses his Bankai to get away. However, they manage to obtain Gejetsuberi. Ichigo goes after Hazukimaru, but the entity escapes when Senbonzakura's petals block Ichigo's route. Ichigo discovers that the attack was from Byakuya, who disappears. Ichigo continues searching for Byakuya and encounters the Zanpakuto spirits of Hinako and Tobium, who are looking for Hyorinmaru. Rangiku Matsumoto and Momo Hinamori arrive to fight their respective Zanpakuto spirits while Ichigo continues the search. Momo uses a Kido spell to knock Tobium into Hinako, causing the two to begin arguing. Ichigo encounters Hyorinmaru, who cannot remember his name or his master. He attempts to freeze Ichigo and leave, but Toshiro Hatsugaya confronts him. Elsewhere, Muramasa encounters and kills a large group of Gillians. Ichigo is still trapped in the ice prison Hyorinmaru trapped him in as Hatsugaya and Hyorinmaru confront each other. Meanwhile, Rangiku and Momo fight their Zanpakuto in the woods and finally manage to overpower them with Kido spells. As Hatsugaya and Hyorinmaru begin to fight, Hatsugaya tries to seal him but is shocked as Hyorinmaru effortlessly dissolves the seal into fragments of ice. As their fight continues, Hyorinmaru's tremendous power turns the whole sky black. Hatsugaya began to recall his past during his first encounter with Hyorinmaru to convince him. Hatsugaya managed to activate Hyorinmaru's Shikai. Thus managed to convince Hyorinmaru that Hatsugaya is his master. Despite freezing himself along with his Zanpakuto and losing consciousness, Hatsugaya manages to convince Hyorinmaru of his identity. Mayuri experiments on Gejetsuberi and discovers that the Zanpakuto can only return to their owner's control once they are defeated by their owners. Rangiku and Momo send Ir Zanpakuto back to the 4th Division barracks, but an unknown assailant attacks the cart carrying them. Ichigo meets with Rangiku and Momo, and then reaches Muramasa, who is having difficulties using his abilities in his current body. Ichigo attempts to attack Muramasa but is stopped by Senbonzakura. Ichigo fights Senbonzakura and gains the upper hand before Byakuya arrives. Byakuya reveals that he has joined Muramasa as part of following his internal desire to protect his pride, and then disappears with Muramasa and Senbonzakura. Okitake, Kyoraku, Renji and Anahana discuss Byakuya's betrayal. Discovering that a Zanpakuto will be unusable if killed by anyone other than its owner. Byakuya returns to the hideout of the Zanpakuto and proves his loyalty by defeating and seemingly killing Sword no Shirayuki. Leaving Rukia unable to use her Zanpakuto. Rukia and Renji investigate Byakuya's office, but Byakuya arrives with Senbonzakura, tossing Rukia the broken remains of her Zanpakuto. Zab. Imaru arrives to help Renji fight Byakuya and Senbonzakura, but they are overpowered. Tenkan, Uzukimaru, Kazeshini, Ruriairokujaku and Gonryomaru suddenly arrive. The 2nd Division surrounds the Zanpakuto, and their owners come out to fight them. As Ichigo goes to confront Byakuya, he is intercepted by Senbonzakura, and they fight each other using their Bankai. Renji and Zabimaru move to prevent Byakuya from leaving. Kira begins fighting Kazeshini, suspecting that its personality is based on Hisagi's suppressed negative impulses. Suifang fights Gonryomaru and Tenkan at once, but she is surprised by a smoke attack. Yumichika faces Ruriairokujaku, and the two exchange insults. While Ikaku fights Uzukimaru, Ikaki is able to break Uzukimaru's Bankai unleashed by repeatedly attacking it, Managi. Enji to withstand its final attack and claiming victory. 4th Division Lieutenant Isane Kotetsu and 7th Division Lieutenant Tetsuzima Iba go to assist the wounded at the scene of the battle when Ashisogi Jizo appears. Suifang continue her fight with Gonryomaru and Tenkan, but then her Zanpakuto, Suzumbachi, appears and attacks her. Ruriairokujaku gains the advantage over Yumichika and begins to use his special ability on Yumichika. Isane and Iba attempt to retreat from Ashisogi Jizo, but Hinako and Tobium arrive and Ashisogi Jizo paralyzes Isane's legs. Rangiku and Momo then return to help them against their opponents. Byakuya manages to defeat Renji and Zabimaru. Kira manages to capture Kazeshini by tricking him into thinking he could still use his Zanpakuto in order to unsettle Kazeshini. But he is soon attacked by his own Zanpakuto, Wabuski. When Ichigo sees this, he desperately fights his way past Senbonzakura to get to Kira, but that is until Kenpachi Zaraki arrives. Kenpachi appears just before Wabuski is about to finish off Kira. Wabuski turns to strike Kenpachi, but Kenpachi easily kills Wabuski off, leaving Kira unable to use his Zanpakuto anymore. Yachiru Osajishi appears as well and tells everyone that she and Kenpachi were off hunting hollows and somehow got lost on the way back, providing an explanation for their disappearance throughout the crisis. Senbonzakura takes on Kenpachi but is overwhelmed by the latter's enormous spiritual power, which destroys a wide radius around them. Byakuya intervenes and fights Kenpachi while Senbonzakura resumes his fight with Ichigo. Yumichika breaks out of Ruriairokujaku's binding vines and defeats him, reclaiming his Zanpakuto. Ichigo continues fighting Senbonzakura while Kenpachi fights Byakuya, but Ashisogi Jizo appears and uses its Bankai. Spraying poison gas over the battlefield, enabling Senbonzakura and Byakuya to escape. Ashisogi Jizo is chased by Yachiru and later gets captured by Kenpachi. Mayuri blows up Ashisogi Jizo, revealed to be his Zanpakuto, causing it to return to its sealed form and break into pieces. Suifang has difficulty hitting the small Suzumbachi, but manages to defeat her. To which Yodishi arrives to congratulate her. Anahana comes to treat the victims of a Shisogi Jiza's poisoning, including Rangiku, Momo, Isune and Iba. Yodishi meets with Ichigo in the captain's present, revealing that she knows Yamamoto's location. Yamamoto is then shown as a prisoner of the Zanpakuto, with Sogyo no Kotowari, Keiten Kyokotsu and Minazuki, recognized as the group of Ryoka from before, encasing him in a barrier. Yodishi discusses with Ukitake, Kyoraku and Kenpachi on how they are going to rescue Yamamoto, knowing that they will be running into high-class Zanpakuto. Meanwhile, Kazeshini comes back to the hideout and faints from exhaustion. Ukitake, Kyoraku and Kenpachi head into the cave in one direction, and Yodishi and Ichigo head in another way. Kyoraku and Ukitake meet their materialized Zanpakuto, Sogyo no Kotowari and Keiten Kyokotsu, while Kenpachi and Yachiru, who get lost in the cave, come across Gonryomaru and Tenkan. In the meantime, Ichigo and Yodishi encounter Hinako and Tobium, who both are defeated by Yodishi. Ichigo heads on and is led to Kazeshini by Minazuki. Ichigo defeats Kazeshini, causing the latter to break into pieces, and Ichigo moves on to find Yamamoto. Muramasa stands in Ichigo's way of rescuing Yamamoto and goads him into releasing his hollow powers against him. Meanwhile, Yodishi, Ukitake and Kyoraku realize that something G is amiss and break away from their opponents. Having used the Zanpakuto entities to distract Ichigo's companions, Muramasa tricks Ichigo into firing his most powerful Get Sugar Tensho at him, but deflects the attack into Yamamoto's barrier, shattering it just as Yodishi, Ukitake and Kyoraku arrive to prevent this from happening. Muramasa reveals that Yamamoto encased himself in the barrier to prevent him from stealing Ryujin Gekka. But with Ichigo's hollow-based attack, it would allow Muramasa to easily obtain Yamamoto's Zanpakuto entity. When Muramasa says that he has no need for the other entities anymore, Keiten Kyokotsu and Sogyo no Kotowari attack him but end up having their physical forms destroyed by Ryujin Gekka. Muramasa makes his escape with Ryujin Gekka, while Yamamoto reveals to the others that Muramasa intends to destroy the 13 Court Guard squads with Ryujin Gekka. Ichigo, Yodishi, Ukitake, Kyoraku and Yamamoto are surrounded by a wall of flames created by Ryujin Gekka. Yodishi escapes underground through a fissure that she opens using her Shinko technique, but Tobium and Hinako use their fireball and sand attacks to cave it in behind Yodishi, preventing the others from following. Ichigo attempts to escape by jumping over the wall of flames but is unsuccessful even with his hollow powers. Yamamoto reveals that Muramasa's plan is to destroy Karakura town in order to free his owner, Koga Kuchiki, who has been sealed there. Upon arriving at Karakura town, Muramasa stumbles upon Oraheim Inoue and blacks out. After waking up from recovery and asking Oraheim who she is, Yuryu Ishida and Yasutara, Chad, Seido arrive to take out Muramasa. Ichigo makes a final attempt at jumping over the wall of flames, and just before he is defeated and completely enveloped in fire, Hitsugaya and Hyorinmaru arrive to save him. Hitsugaya and Hyorinmaru both activate their Bankai to help get Ichigo out of the flames so that he can head to Karakura town to stop Muramasa. Kenpachi continues his fight against Tenkan. Yodishi outmaneuvers Hinako and Tobium while trying to convince them that Muramasa betrayed them. Yamamoto, Ukitake, Kyoraku, Hitsugaya and Hyorinmaru plan to defeat Ryujin Gekka together. Yuryu and Chad arrive to fight Muramasa, but he evades all their attacks and Senbonzakura arrives to help him. Muramasa tries to use his ability on Chad and incapacitates him, due to him not being a Soul Reaper. Oraheim asks Muramasa about his motive, and Muramasa reveals that he wishes to be free of solitude. Rukia arrives as Muramasa tries to escape to unseal Koga. Yuryu continues to fight Senbonzakura, managing to hit him with Seal Schneider, but he is still able to keep fighting. Muramasa manages to unseal Koga as Ichigo arrives to face him. In a flashback several centuries ago, it is revealed that Koga was part of the Kuchiki clan as the son-in-law of Ginrei Kuchiki and was overconfident in the abilities of his Zanpakuto. He helped put down a rebellion of Soul Reapers, but some grew suspicious of his power and had him attacked. He cut down his attackers, but he was framed for killing his own allies by a group of jealous high-ranking Soul Reapers. He was imprisoned as a result, but he escaped with Muramasa's help. In the present, Koga awakens, repelling Ichigo and Rukia, then suddenly stabs Muramasa. The flashback continues and reveals that Oga killed the people who had framed him. But after Ginrei confronted him, he went insane and began killing anyone he perceived as an enemy. Muramasa tried to reach out to Koga but eventually was no longer able to hear his voice. Koga was finally defeated and sealed away by Ginrei and Yamamoto when Koga's call for Muramasa went unheard. In the present, Muramasa asks why Koga stabbed him, as he had worked hard to bring about his return. But Koga responds that Zanpakuto are tools that obey their master's commands. He tries to finish off Muramasa, but Byakuya steps in, saying that he is no longer worthy to be called a Soul Reaper. Senbonzakura reveals that Byakuya had sworn to kill Koga and had been searching for how to unseal him, even if that meant risking his status as a Soul Reaper. Muramasa offers Koga his power. But Koga breaks Muramasa, stating that he does not need help. Byakuya and Koga fight, but Koga gains the upper hand when he distorts Byakuya's senses. Senbonzakura helps dispel the effect though, and Byakuya manages to use Bankai on Koga. As Byakuya notes that Koga's failing was refusing to trust his Zanpakuto or anyone else, the two charge at each other. After Koga's defeat, Muramasa becomes unstable, as he had absorbed hollows in order to sustain himself without a master. Many hollows spill forth from his body and he transforms into a form similar to an Aranka. Rahim tries to reach out to him to save him from his sorrow, but he attacks the group. Ichigo manages to slash through Muramasa, but he becomes even more unstable and transforms into a larger dome-shaped mass, engulfing Ichigo in the process. The formerly rebellious Zanpakuto return with their owners to help Ichigo and his friends in the battle. The Zanpakuto, having been released from their brainwashing with Mayuri's help, who also restored the destroyed Zanpakuto, fight the arriving Menos Grands, but more come from a hole in the sky. Byakuya manages to seal the hole with spiritual energy gathered from all the other Soul Reapers. Despite their efforts, Ichigo remains trapped inside the dome, which continues growing larger. As the dome grows unstable and the Soul Reapers fight the Gillians outside, Ichigo fights Muramasa, who is beginning to become a hollow, inside Koga's inner realm, which is collapsing from the grudges of the hollows he consumed to sustain himself. Ichigo questions Muramasa's devotion to Koga in spite of his apparent motives for freeing the Zanpakuto, insisting that he should know what a true bond between a Soul Reaper and a Zanpakuto is. Ichigo defeats Muramasa, causing the two to leave his inner world. Muramasa dies after realizing the error of his ways, and Byakuya thanks Ichigo. While Byakuya allows his squad to hold a Hanami at his mansion, two strange attackers, one that is masked and the other resembling a satyr, arrive, but the maske D1 is quickly defeated by Sword no Shirayuki and Senbonzakura, who among all Zanpakuto have since rematerialized, while the satyr one escapes. Mayuri refers to these attackers as sword beasts CHR Zanpakuto whose masters have been killed. Rukia and Sword no Shirayuki try luring out the satyr sword beast by having a drinking party, but fail. Soon, Rukia and Sword no Shirayuki find the satyr sword beast attacking and eventually defeat him together, capturing him and turning him in for study. Okitake and Kyoraku become concerned at this development, noting that the Sireti is still being rebuilt. In the real world, Ichigo encounters and fights a sword beast. When Hatsugaya comes to aid Ichigo, the sword beast retreats. Okitake and Kyoraku infer that there are at least as many sword beasts as the number of Soul Reapers lost in the war, and the two plan on stabilizing the sword beasts to have them return to their sword forms, despite Mayuri's lack of interest. The sword beast is attacked by a hollow, but he manages to fuse with it. The hollow sword beast overpowers Hinako when she tries to fight him, but Ichigo is able to disarm him. The hollow sword beast fires a Zero blast at Ichigo, but Hatsugaya manages to destroy it, noting that the sword beasts are more dangerous than he had thought. Renji and Zabimaru come to the real world following a sword beast. Zabimaru's two halves, Saru and Heibi, split up to search. Although they quickly find a boomerang sword beast, he escapes. Heibi follows him and is convinced that being free is better. Heibi, having trouble doing anything due to being unseen by the public, meets Karen Kurosaki and Yuzu Kurosaki, the former being the only one able to see him, who both end up taking him home. Meanwhile, at a park, Renji notices that Aru is feeling lonely without Heibi around. Ichigo returns home at night, only to find Heibi, who realizes that Ichigo is a substitute Soul Reaper. Heibi runs away, only to encounter the boomerang sword beast again. As they battle each other, Heibi has the advantage until the boomerang sword beast captures Karin, who was following Heibi. Renji and Saru come to rescue Heibi and defeat the boomerang sword beast. Ichigo takes Karin home, convincing her it was all a dream, even though she knew otherwise. Having resolved his differences, Heibi returns with Renji and Saru to the Soul Society. Ikaku, Hanataro Yamada, Nano Eyes and Hazukimaru are sent to investigate some thefts that have taken place and track the culprit to the sewers. They are attacked by a large monster, which manages to injure Ikaku. The rest discover a white robot, who has the stash of stolen items. The large monster, revealed to be a tentacle sword beast, attacks the group again. The robot heals Ikaku and fires a powerful blast at the tentacle sword beast, destroying it. It is revealed that the robot is Hanataro's Zanpakuto, Hisagomaru, which had resisted Muramusa's control because it did not resent Hanataro. The group returns the stolen items, but Hisagomaru was separated from the group. When Ikaku, Eba, Kira and Hisagi go on a mission to fight a gang of sword beasts in the Rokongai, Kazeshini, despite being free of Muramusa's control, has a brief fight with Hisagi. After killing a sword beast, Kazeshini finds a dying man who begs him to take care of his child. Kazeshini is frequently annoyed by the child's behavior, but often shows concern for it, and abandons a chance to attack Hisagi when he hears it crying. After defeating another sword beast that is attacking a woman who came for the child, he leaves the child with the woman and goes to confront Hisagi. Kazeshini faces Hisagi in one last fight, but is inhibited by a back wound obtained earlier while protecting the child and is defeated, turning back into a normal Zanpakuto. While Ichigo, Rukia and Urahara investigate a sword beast attacking students, a girl named Kyoko Haida, who has the ability to predict the future and know things she would otherwise not, transfers to Karakura High School. Oraheim tries to become friends with her, but learns that her best friend, Mai Suzuki, rejected her after learning of her ability. A mouthless sword beast merges with Kyoko and tries to take over her body to kill Mai, but Ichigo, Rukia and Oraheim confront it. Oraheim uses her healing powers to separate the mouthless sword beast from Kyoko, and Ichigo manages to defeat it with Get Sugar Tensho. Afterward, Oraheim and Kyoko become friends, with Oraheim accepting Kyoko's abilities. While on a mission with Rangiku to fight sword beasts, Hinako encounters one named Narunosuke, whose master was a coward, and who went with the others in order to become stronger. Hinako becomes friends with Narunosuke, sneaking him food and medicine despite the belief that the sword beasts inevitably lose control of themselves. As feared, Narunosuke gradually does lose control of his mind and body, and Rangiku arrives to deal with him. Hinako tries to stop her, but when Narunosuke becomes too dangerous, she is ultimately forced to destroy him. While delivering a hammer sword beast to the 12th Division barracks, Senbonzakura and Zabimaru find themselves caught in the barracks intruder containment system when the former messes around with the remote control. After Senbonzakura fails to break the glass case with his Shikai, much to Zabimaru's annoyance, Ashisogi Jizo passes by, but it is unable to hear them due to the glass case being soundproof. Ashisogi Jizo accidentally break the remote control, making an irritated Senbonzakura to use his Bankai to destroy the glass case, which sets off a lockdown mechanism. Senbonzakura and Zabimaru run past the closing gates, leading them to a control room that surprisingly monitors the perimeters of the Sireti. Senbonzakura sets off explosions all over the place after messing around with all the buttons. When a maddened Ashisogi Jizo appears, Senbonzakura and Zabimaru each use their Bankai at it, destroying the control room as well as the rest of the barracks. This catches the attention of the other Soul Reapers, especially Renji, who is gravely disappointed. Later, when it is reported that Senbon's Akura is leading a group to hunt down a sword beast, Zabimaru goes after him to avoid writing apology letters. Kyoraku has Nano go with the Kunoichi bodyguard of Kaiten Kyokotsu to find a sword beast, while the mistress of Kaiten Kyokotsu sips sake with Kyoraku. Nano later spots the Kunoichi bodyguard fighting a bearded sword beast, but she toys with him instead of trying to defeat him, which causes Nano to become very concerned to the point of restraining her. Later, with Rangiku's help, Nano then tries to bond with Kunoichi bodyguard. After many methods to open up to her ultimately fail, now plans to have a party for the Kunoichi bodyguard under the cherry blossoms. Nano realizes that the Kunoichi bodyguard takes an interest in cherry blossoms, pinning one to her hair. Not before long, the bearded sword beast returns, cutting Nanao's arm. Remembering that she set down her weapon down near a cherry blossom tree, the Kunoichi bodyguard is rendered defenseless, although she still has the determination to fight back. When the bearded sword beast kicks the Kunoichi bodyguard into a wall, he tries to finish Nano off, that is until Kyoraku shows up and defeats him. During the party, the Kunoichi bodyguard returns the favor by pinning a cherry blossom to Nanao's hair. Kazeshini attacks a cleaver sword beast that has been cornered by the 9th division, but the cleaver sword beast turns back into sword form before Kazeshini prepares for a fatal blow, confusing him. Kazeshini, Zabimaru, Hazukimaru and Ruriairo Kujaku gather together to discuss that an unknown sword beast is absorbing the spiritual energies of other sword beasts, causing them to turn back their sword forms. It is shown that the unknown sword beast has done this to a yokai sword beast. The next day, the unknown sword beast attacks a lion sword beast, a face sword beast and an ape sword beast in the streets of the Rukongai, absorbing each of their spiritual energies. All of the Zanpakuto decide to face the sword beast, recognized as Kirikas. Without their owners, they soon realize that their attacks are no match against Kirika's due to his ability to transform into mist. Their owners arrive and convince them that Soul Reapers and Zanpakuto must fight as one in order to win the battle. All of the Zanpakuto give what little spiritual energy they have left to Renji, who is then able to activate his Bankai, finishing Kirika's off once and for all. Although the Zanpakuto return to their sword forms, the Soul Reapers note that they can still feel the presence of their Zanpakuto.